shocking moment, I switched glasses after catching my daughter-in-law at 3 a.m. In the dead of night, the silence was deafening. The kind that makes your skin crawl. But at 3 a.m., the stillness was shattered by an unimaginable sight. Bob leaned closer to the window, the dim streetlight flickering shadows across his face. There she was, his daughter-in-law, Sarah, standing in the moonlight, her figure cloaked in an eerie glow. What was she doing out there? It felt wrong in a way that made his heart race, like a moth drawn to a flame. The deeper he stared, the stranger it became. She was talking to someone in a dark car parked across the street. The headlights were off, leaving the inside shrouded in murky shadows. How could someone be awake at this hour, let alone having a secret conversation? Was it innocent? Or something darker? Bob's chest tightened as he caught snippets of their exchange, her voice strained, almost angry. Panic surged. Did he just see her hand reach out and touch the mysterious figure? Bob blinked, and suddenly his vision blurred. He fumbled for his glasses, realizing in that moment he had accidentally switched pairs. The thick lenses he wore now wobbled on his nose, distorting every detail. He felt a surge of urgency, yet dread filled the air. If only he could focus. If only he could understand what was happening just outside his window. Uneasy, he tried to shake off the chilling feeling trying to creep in. This was his family. He had to find out the truth. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a burst of bravery, he made a decision to switch back to his normal glasses. The world snapped into focus, the night's colors brightening as if they'd been drenched in water. He leaned closer. His heart pounded. But then, it hit him. Was that fear in her eyes? Bob's breath caught. What if he was witnessing something he shouldn't see? What if the conversation escalated? His limbs trembled with hesitation. He should call out, confront her about this late-night rendezvous. But what if he pushed her away? What if the truth was something he really didn't want to know? The car door opened slowly, a figure stepping out cloaked in darkness. As the mystery deepened, Bob couldn't shake the cold chill crawling up his spine. Who were they? What would this night reveal? The answers lingered just out of reach, dripping with unanticipated consequences. The figure emerged from the car, each step echoing like a warning bell in Bob's ears. He squinted, trying to make out details, but shadows played tricks. A slim silhouette, clad in a dark coat, approached Sarah. What could they be discussing? A sickening knot twisted in Bob's stomach. This was no casual encounter. Sarah. He breathed, half imagining calling out, half terrified of what might happen if he did. Would she turn? Would she see him watching? As he focused, a shiver ran down his spine. She was pulling away. The tension in her body was palpable, her hands clasped tightly as if restraining an inner storm. Bob fought to steal a closer look, wishing he could read every flicker of emotion that crossed her face. Words flowed between them, too low to catch, but he could sense the weight in the exchanges. It was intimate, tense, and to his horror, desperate. Suddenly, a flash, something silver caught the glimmer of the moonlight. Panic surged through him. Was that a knife? Bob's heart raced even faster. Was Sarah in danger? Unconsciously, he gripped the window frame, feeling the wood bite into his palms as if it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Bob barely noticed the car's side mirror reflecting something, a glimpse of a second figure inside the vehicle, watching, waiting. The weight of the situation grew heavier, suffocating like the humid air of a summer storm. He glanced instinctively towards the door, grappling internally with the need to intervene versus the instinct to remain hidden. Stay away from her. He wanted to shout, but his voice was trapped in his throat. The fear of losing her in some unknown showdown held him hostage. What if he was wrong? What if this was all in his head? But then Sarah's voice pierced through the night, sharp and pleading, sending a bullet of dread straight into Bob's heart. I can't keep doing this. You don't understand what you're asking. His breath caught. So, it was true. Whatever secrets lay hidden, they were real, and they threatened to unleash chaos. Who was this figure? What could be so urgent that she'd risk everything at this hour? A sense of necessity took over. He needed to act, but how? Quietly, he backed away from the window, pulse pounding in his ears. He felt overwhelmed, making his way toward the stairwell, his feet heavy, as if weighed down by the gravity of the situation. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a shout against the silence. Just as he reached the landing, his phone buzzed in his pocket, nearly causing him to jump out of his skin. The light from the screen illuminated the dark hallway, showing a message from his son, "Dad, where are you? Call me. I'm worried about Sarah." His heart plummeted. Was this a coincidence? Or a desperate plea for help? As silence descended once more, a loud bang echoed from the front door, jolting him back to the present. Bob stared at the door, frozen, pulse racing. What was happening? Was Sarah okay? He made a decision. He had to get to her. With one last breath, he steeled himself and opened the door, ready to face whatever lay beyond. And that's when he saw the figure at the end of the path, waiting. Who was it? Was it friend or foe? And what could he possibly uncover that would change everything? Through the thick darkness, the figure took a step closer, the moonlight illuminating just enough to reveal a face that Bob didn't recognize. A jolt of fear twisted in his gut. It wasn't just the chilling air, it was the calculated glint in the stranger's eyes. Who was this person, and what did they want with Sarah? Bob felt a primal urge to protect, to shield her from whatever abyss this figure represented. Silent curses echoed in his mind. He should have been there. He should have warned her. But here he was, paralyzed, a wretched spectator in a nightmare unfolding before him. Sarah. The word was a whisper, barely escaping his lips. His heart thundered in his chest, drowning out the sounds of the night. He took a cautious step down the path, every fiber of his being urging him to flee. But fear transformed into a determination so fierce it almost burned. The stranger tilted their head slightly, as if sensing Bob's presence. An animalistic instinct kicked in. Bob backed up, silhouetted by the light streaming from the door. Get away from her! He shouted, surprising even himself with the force of his voice. The words cascaded into the air, sharp as glass. Both figures turned, shock rippling across Sarah's features. She looked torn, like a deer caught in headlights. Bob's heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions crashing against each other, relief at her recognition, fear for her safety, anger at the stranger. Bob! Sarah's voice rang out, desperate and pleading as if her heart was breaking into pieces. Stay back. Time seemed to freeze, every breath caught in a taut tension, the air thick with dread. Bob felt the void deepen between them, a chasm carved by choices yet made. Why are you here? The figure's voice was low, almost a hiss, its gaze locked on Bob with unsettling intensity. Who the hell are you? Bob snarled, stepping further down the path, feeling the gravel crunch beneath his feet. Every instinct pulled him forward, he had to stand his ground. What do you want with her? Knowledge, the figure responded, tone cold and calculative. Wisdom shared in the shadows. Sarah interjected, it's not what you think. She stepped toward the stranger, her fingers trembling. The tension radiated off her in waves. Please, just let me explain. No. Bob's voice cracked with urgency. He was losing control of the narrative. It was like watching a car crash unfold in slow motion. You can't trust them. Stop. The words sliced through the air as the stranger raised an object glimmering in the moonlight. It was a compact device, tiny but deadly looking. "This is your last chance, Sarah. Choose." Bob's breath hitched. The question hung ominously in the air. What choice? And what curse did it bring with it? Dread coursed through him, a chilling realization creeping in whatever secrets Sarah held had now pulled him into a game far larger than he could fathom. "Sarah," he managed, voice trembling but firm, "please don't," and then the world around him exploded into chaos. A loud crack shattered the night, drowning out every sound. The figure staggered as a flash erupted near them, the darkness briefly parting to reveal an outcome no one had expected. Bob recoiled, stunned by the searing brightness, the pulse of uncertainty electrifying the air. As the dust settled, he blinked, struggling to understand what had just transpired. Was the figure gone? Had Sarah been hurt? The answers surged forward, bubbling with urgency and dread. In that moment, uncertainty gnawed at him, hungry for closure, just as an unsettling shadow flickered in the corner of his eye, another presence approaching swiftly. "Bob!" The voice called out. But was it help or yet another threat closing in? What truths lay hidden right before him? Bob turned, fighting a wave of panic as he tried to identify the new figure breaking through the faint moonlit haze. Every instinct screamed at him, adrenaline spiked, and he was ready to defend Sarah with everything he had. The shadow drew closer, and as it stepped into the light, he felt a familiar pang of confusion. It was Mike, his old friend. His face was pale, eyes wide with concern, but the relief that washed over Bob was short-lived. The urgency of the previous moment lingered, still thickening the air around them. "Bob! What the hell is going on?" Mike's voice edged with alarm, eyes darting to Sarah, who was still frozen, her shocked expression echoing across the expansive darkness. Before Bob could answer, the stranger had already recovered and pointed the metallic device at Mike. "You shouldn't have come here." "Stop!" Bob shouted, instinctively stepping forward, though every nerve in him screamed to retreat. "What do you want?" Silence can be a powerful ally, but witnesses complicate things. The stranger's voice dripped with a calm that belied the intensity of the situation. "Back off!" Mike shouted, fists clenched. "Let Sarah go," Bob insisted, his voice cracking like thunder in the night. He felt an odd pressure in his chest, driven by a mix of fear and anger. The air close to Sarah shimmered with unease, and Bob begged her silently to step away from the danger. "She needs to understand." The stranger hissed, eyes narrowing. "There are truths far deeper than the surface. She must choose wisdom over ignorance." "Bob," Sarah started, but the words morphed into confusion as she met Bob's desperate gaze, uncertainty etching deeper lines on her face. In that heartbeat, everything felt suspended, moments before the storm. A faint rustle sounded from the nearby trees, drawing all their attention. Something else was out there. "What is happening?" Mike demanded, glancing nervously toward the sound, tension crackling in the air. "Are we in danger?" Bob nodded, not bothering to deny it. "We need to get out of here. Now." Suddenly, the stranger lowered the device slightly, a glimmer of hesitation flaring. "Time is not on your side," they uttered, voice low, ominous. "What you seek, it's in the balance." And as if the universe had been waiting for that exact moment, shadows converged from all sides. Bob felt his heart racing, a primal instinct of survival kicking in. They were surrounded. "Go!" Bob shouted to Sarah and Mike, not waiting for a response. He surged forward, his heart pounding, a mix of terror and desperation fueling every step. But he could feel it, a heavy darkness gathering, whispers hissing in the back of his mind. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Bob's world drowned in blackness, fear clawing at him as he lost sight of everything. Panic surged through him. "Sarah!" he shouted, terror flooding his voice. The sensation of being alone clawed at him harder than he'd ever felt before. "Right here. Sarah's voice pierced the dark, grounding him for a second, but the urgency of her tone sent another wave of dread crashing over him. "Stay close." "I can't." Her voice cut off, as a shadow loomed over them. The air crackled with tension. What had they stumbled into? And what price would they have to pay to escape alive? Bob didn't know. All he could do was push forward, desperate to shield the two people he loved most. Clarity was a luxury, and survival became the only choice left. But as figures lunged forward, would it be enough? In the chaos of heartbeats and shadows, the choice was only beginning. The darkness enveloped them like a thick fog, every sound amplified in the eerie silence. Bob's heart raced, pounding in his ears, drowning out everything else. His instinct screamed at him to move, to act, but he couldn't see what was happening. "Sarah!" His voice trembled as he called out again, straining his ears for any sign of her. In the pitch blackness, he felt a terrifying vulnerability, a sharp contrast to the fierce protector he had always believed himself to be. "Bob!" Her voice emerged, shaky yet strangely clear, and he followed it instinctively, every step feeling like a dance on a tightrope. One wrong move could send them tumbling into oblivion. The air shifted suddenly, thick with the weight of disapproving shadows. Something loomed nearby, hinting at a presence far more sinister than he could have imagined. Was it the stranger or an entirely different threat? "Mike! Where are you?" Fear clawed at Bob's throat. No response. The strangled silence set his nerves on fire. Just then, a flash of light flickered. It sliced through the darkness, a beam from the stranger's metallic device, illuminating an unmistakable face of menace. "Stay back." Mike's voice came from behind Bob, filled with rage, though it quivered as it slices through the tension. "Don't you dare hurt her." The bright light oscillated, revealing shadows near the trees once more. Figures moved just beyond the perimeter, merging into the darkness as if they were part of it. Bob felt an icy chill race down his spine. How many were there? "Bob, I can't breathe." Sarah's whisper sent a piercing stab through his heart. "Keep talking to me," he urged, desperate to tether his focus. "I'm scared." Her voice faded, and he could sense her heart racing from the way she quivered next to him. "Look, I'm right here," he assured her, reaching out to clasp her hand. The warmth of her skin ignited a fire in his chest, giving him strength. But as he steadied himself, the stranger stepped closer, nearly brushing against Mike. "You have no idea the dance you've begun," they sneered, their tone laced with contempt, as if reveling in the fear they were instigating. Bob's muscles tensed. "What do you want?" "We are the keepers of what you do not understand." The stranger's voice danced like smoke, wrapping around them, suffocating and elusive. "The truth is buried deep, and it is not yours to unveil. Let her go." Mike yelled, stepping protectively in front of them. The air grew heavier with each second, the tension pulsating like the drum of a heart racing towards disaster. Without warning, a shrill noise pierced through the darkness, an unsettling, shrieking sound that rose into a crescendo. Shadows lunged toward them, snapping like electric currents, and the rush of air became sharp blades, slicing through the night. "What is that?" Sarah gasped, her voice trembling as she clutched Bob's arm. "I don't know," he exclaimed, panic surging into his veins. "Run!" Mike suddenly bellowed, pushing Bob and Sarah forward, his feet pounding the ground as they sprinted deeper into the unknown. The darkness snaked around them, chasing with claws ready to drag them back. Each step echoed their desperation, the shadows closing in. But then a blinding flash erupted nearby, lighting up the dense chaos for just a moment. Bob's heart sank as he realized they were not alone. Figures emerged, faces twisted with intent. "Follow!" he shouted, yanking on Sarah's hand as panic ignited the night, but as they dashed ahead, the question loomed larger than the darkness itself: was running enough to escape the shadows, or were they racing straight toward a fate worse than they could imagine? The pounding of their hearts drowned out the chaos around them. Bob glanced back once, just for a moment. The figures were closer, their grotesque faces stretching with malicious delight. His mind raced, searching for an escape, but the chill of despair wrapped around him like a noose. Left! Mike shouted, veering suddenly. The alleyway twisted, the tall buildings towering like ancient giants. They sprinted past an old, rusted gate hanging off its hinges. Over here. Bob grabbed Sarah's hand tighter, pulling her towards a narrow opening. She stumbled, catching herself against the cold brick wall. Why are they doing this? Sarah gasped, breathless, her face a portrait of fear etched by moonlight. I don't know. Bob snapped, the frustration mingling with dread as they plunged into the dark entryway. Somewhere beneath his panic, a thought flickered. But we can't stop. The air was thick and stale inside the cramped corridor, and a sense of foreboding seeped into Bob's bones. They had to keep moving, but the memories of their lives outside this madness clawed at his mind. What if they never emerged again? A sudden crash echoed through the darkness, a violent shattering of glass that sent fractures through the night. Bob instinctively pressed himself against the wall, his heart racing even faster. He strained to hear, to feel the impending danger. The shadows swarmed around them like an angry hive. Bob! Mike's voice broke through the ringing in his ears. We need to split up. Draw them away. No. Bob shouted, the thought of losing either of them clawed at his insides. We stay together. We trust me. Mike's eyes were fierce, frantic urgency emanating from him. Just keep running, find a way to escape. I'll handle this. Before Bob could protest further, Mike spun on his heel, running back into the darkness. Bob felt a crushing weight settle in his chest, but he didn't have time to dwell on it. He turned to Sarah, who was wide-eyed, fear palpable in the air between them. Follow me. He pulled her deeper into the corridor, the outline of the gate now a haunting memory. With each step, fear turned into motivation, and the shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation behind them. Suddenly, the corridor led them into an open space, what seemed like an abandoned courtyard, moonlight pouring down like silver. In the center stood an old fountain, dry and cracked, long abandoned by time. The silence made Bob's skin crawl. What now? Sarah's voice trembled, her hand tightening around Bob's as they scanned their surroundings. There's gotta be a way out. Somewhere, he muttered, taking a cautious step forward. The crumbling bricks felt jagged beneath his feet, like they were warning him of the danger lurking close by. A sudden roar shattered the silence. It echoed through the hollow space, twisting into the night a sound that felt otherworldly. Heart pounding, Bob whipped around, scanning for Mike or any sign of the pursuers. Bob, look! Sarah gasped, pointing toward the far end of the courtyard. A figure stepped into the edge of the shadows, cloaked in darkness but unmistakably watching them. Run! Bob yelled, instinctively yanking Sarah's arm again, but dread rooted him to the ground. Something in that figure danced with dangerous intent, the flicker of a strange device glowed faintly in their grasp. It's not over, echoed in the air, a whisper that sent shivers crawling up Bob's spine. Who was that? The stranger? Or something far worse? They edged away slowly, eyes darting, hearts racing. As they turned to flee, the shadows seemed to congeal, forming a barrier around them. Don't let them close in. He shouted, pulling Sarah along, but the courtyard felt like it was closing in on them, a trap set to ensnare. And just when it felt as though escape was impossible, Sarah stumbled. Bob's heart lurched as she fell to her knees, gasping. Behind them, the figure stepped closer, the air growing thick with malevolence. Get up! He grabbed her arm as the figure's radiance illuminated the courtyard. And then, he froze. What? No. No way. The truth was there. Undeniable. Were they moments away from the ultimate revelation, or was the worst yet to come? Bob's breath hitched as he stared into the face of the figure. The shadows writhed around them, swirling in unnatural patterns. It felt like the very essence of fear had taken form in front of him. Who are you? His voice trembled, his mind racing to process the impossible. The figure stepped into the light, and what was once an enigma turned into a chilling familiarity. It was someone he knew, someone he had thought was lost to the madness, a twisted reflection of Mike. Mike? Bob's voice was barely a whisper. No, it can't be. The look on the doppelganger's face sent a jolt through his spine. It was a smile that bore no warmth, eyes glimmering with malicious intent. Oh, it's me, all right. But not the Mike you remember. Sarah gasped, her grip tightening around Bob's arm. What do you mean? What have they done to you? Everything, the other Mike said, tilting his head as if studying them. I've seen the truth, Bob. You think you can escape? We're all part of this now. He raised the device that glowed ominously in his hand, a swirling orb radiating dread. You'll find out soon enough. Bob squeezed Sarah's hand, desperation clawing at him. We have to go. Now. They turned, but the shadows were there, weaving in and out like living ghosts. The path behind them had shifted, the courtyard transforming into a maze of brick and despair. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself conspired against them. Stop! The dark Mike called, a venomous command that echoed off the walls. You can't run from the fate that's been chosen for you. Bob, what are we doing? Sarah's voice quivered. Panic was creeping into her eyes. We can't outrun him. Just keep moving. Bob cried, adrenaline surging through him. They pressed forward, the eerie glow of the device illuminating the darkness behind them. But the courtyard twisted again. Paths vanished, sections of the space contorting into walls that had never existed before. Bob felt disoriented, his world narrowing down to survival. Remember this place? Mike's voice called from the shadows, each word dripping with malevolence. Every turn is crafted to keep you here. It's fun watching you struggle. Shut up. Bob shouted, defiance igniting inside him. They were nearing the edge of the courtyard, but something pulled at him, a memory, a connection. He needed to think clearly. That wasn't Mike. It couldn't be. Whatever had turned him was something powerful and sinister. Bob, I can't breathe. Sarah's plea jolted him back to reality. He looked down. Her face was pale, and her knees buckled as the shadows seeped closer, hungry for their despair. Hang on. He planted himself in front of her, desperate to shield her from the approaching horror. We're getting out of this. Panic surged through him. Bob ducked to the side, pulling Sarah along as the alley morphed again, seemingly leading them back to the fountain. For a moment, hope sparked a way out. But the light from the orb intensified, casting dark shapes that threatened to swallow them whole. The dark doppelganger stepped forward, a predator savoring the fear. Do you not see? There's no escape. You can't break the cycle. You're part of this now, he sneered, flicking the orb casually. It pulsed like a heartbeat, reverberating with ominous power. Bob's heart raced. With renewed determination, he took a step toward the fountain, willing it to be a way out. We need to destroy that thing. He yelled to Sarah. Before they could move, a gust of wind rushed through the courtyard, thrusting them against the wall. Everything shook violently, and shadows lashed out like tendrils, wrapping around them, pulling them back into deeper darkness. Let us go. Sarah screamed, but it did no good. The shadows closed in tighter, freezing them in a paralyzing grip, and then, just as all hope seemed lost, the orb flickered with a blinding light, illuminating the depths of their despair, revealing something that made Bob's heart skip, outlines of eyes watching them from the shadows, countless and unyielding. Run! Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. Now! But with the shadows in relentless pursuit, as the light of the orb expanded, Bob faced the chilling realization that they were caught in a web of horror created by someone they once trusted. And with a final push, they sprang forward, diving into a new dimension of darkness, unknowing of what awaited beyond. what had the figure unleashed? Would they ever emerge from the nightmare? The darkness swallowed them, and the world twisted into a disorienting blur. Bob felt time stretch, seconds elongating as if mocking their desperate escape. Shadows coiled around him, whispering secrets he dared not comprehend. "Keep moving," Bob shouted, his voice a raw rasp in the thick air, but Sarah's breathing was shallow, her strength ebbing. They stumbled through a maze of black, where walls shifted like deceptive mirages, trapping them in an endless loop of terror. "Where are we?" she gasped, glancing over her shoulder. The menacing figure of the dark Mike lingered in the shadows, his eyes burning with a haunting light. "He's right behind us, Bob." Bob's heart pounded. He had to think. "The orb," he muttered, remembering its glow. It was the key, the source of their torment, and he couldn't let it claim Sarah too. "We need to find a way to destroy it to break the cycle." With each step, shadows reached for them, twisting and curling, hungry for their despair. The courtyard felt alive, pulsating with a dark energy that reverberated in Bob's bones. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a breath, grounding himself. If he could remember the connection, the bond that held them to this place, perhaps they could forge a loophole, a way to escape. "Bob," Sarah's voice trembled, pulling him back. "I can't hold on much longer. Just a few more steps," he urged, feeling the barrier of shadows pressing closer. He had to believe. They pressed on, dodging the maelstrom of encroaching darkness. Bob's mind raced, recalling every moment they had shared, every smile, every laugh. Love. It anchored him, a lifeline amidst a storm of horrors. "We can't let this darkness win," he shouted, his voice a battle cry. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught his eye. There, amidst the swirling shadows, was the fountain, its water shimmering faintly, as if sensing their plight. "There." He pointed. "If we can reach it, maybe the orb can be destroyed in the water." But before they could react, the shadowy figure lunged forward, echoing with sinister laughter that tinged the air with ice. "You think you can take it from me? You're mine now." The walls collapsed around them, the ground shuddering. Bob grabbed Sarah's hand, squeezing it fiercely. "Trust me." He dove toward the fountain, and together they surged forward, shadows clawing at their heels. As they approached, a wave of energy pulsed from the fountain, repelling the darkness around them. "Keep going," Bob yelled, urging Sarah on. In that moment of desperation and determination, the orb flickered angrily, casting deep shadows who seemed to hiss in anger. "You'll regret this." The doppelganger screeched. As they reached the fountain, Bob grabbed the edge, his heart racing. "What now?" Sarah cried, panic etched in her features. "Throw it in," Bob shouted, urgency thick in his throat. "We have to disrupt its power." Sarah hesitated for one heartbeat, her eyes darting between the orb and the encroaching darkness as if weighing their chances. "Now," he urged. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for the orb, and as they both lifted it together, a blinding flash momentarily illuminated the courtyard. The shadows pulled back, shrieking in fury. Bob's grip tightened around Sarah as they hurled the orb into the fountain. Water erupted in a dazzling explosion, showering them in a cascade of light. The shadows wailed, and for a brief moment, silence enveloped them, but then, darkness surged back as if trying to reclaim what they had just torn away. It was as if the act of their defiance fueled the shadows, igniting their wrath. "Bob! Look out!" Sarah screamed. A clawing entity surged forward, dark limbs reaching for them, but Bob stood his ground, determined not to let fear consume him. They were on the edge. They had to end this. Together. Bob shouted, drawing Sarah close as the power of the fountain surged around them, intertwining their fates. But just as they thought they had a chance, the ground trembled violently, and the very fabric of the courtyard began ripping apart, leaving a yawning abyss before them. "Jump!" Bob shouted, his voice echoing above the chaos. "We have to take the leap." As they leapt into the unknown, Bob clamped his eyes shut, clutching Sarah as the darkness threatened to pull them apart. But the shattering echoes of the courtyard's demise rang in his ears, drowning out everything else as they plunged into the abyss, unknowing of where they would land or if they would ever emerge safe and whole. What awaited them on the other side? Would they emerge alive or become shadows within shadows? The fall seemed endless. Bob felt the air rush by, the darkness wrapping around him like a freezing mist. It was disorienting. He couldn't tell if they were going up or down. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, loud enough to drown out the cacophony of the courtyard collapsing behind them. Suddenly, a hard thud jolted his body. They landed, not on solid ground, but on something softer. A thick fog cocooned them, and a chill settled deep in Bob's bones. He opened his eyes, the dull light revealing a distorted landscape, a surreal version of the courtyard they had just fled. "Are we alive?" Sarah's whisper trembled as she stirred beside him, her eyes wide and searching. Bob pushed himself up, scanning their surroundings. It was eerily quiet, but the shadowy presence felt closer somehow, watching, waiting. "I think so," he replied, glancing around. "But we need to keep moving. We can't stay here." They stood, clinging to one another, stepping cautiously into the haze. Every sound seemed amplified: the soft crunch of their footsteps, the faint rustle of unseen things drifting just beyond their line of sight. An uneasy feeling crept over him. "We should have never thrown the orb. What if it brings him here?" Sarah murmured, biting her lip. Bob's heart sank, remembering the malevolent laughter and that hungry look in dark Mike's eyes. "We had no choice. We couldn't let it take us." But doubt gnawed at him. What had they unleashed? As they moved deeper into the fog, a familiar voice broke the silence. It echoed eerily, filled with an unsettling familiarity. "Bob, Sarah." It was the sinister mockery of Mike, distorted and stretched, sending chills coursing through Bob's spine. "Did you really think you could escape? Get back!" Bob shouted, swinging around to face the sound. His pulse raced. They had come so far, they couldn't lose themselves now, but the shadows twisted, forming shapes that danced in the periphery of his vision. They couldn't see Mike, but he could feel him lurking just beyond reach. "You're not free here," the voice taunted, now coming from all directions. "You've only opened the gate. We want to let you take us." Sarah shouted defiantly, lifting her chin. Bob could sense the determination in her voice, but fear coiled tightly around his heart. "Stay close," he muttered, clutching her hand. They ventured onward, the fog swirling thicker, almost alive, sapping their energy. Every minute felt like an eternity. The air was heavy, saturated with a palpable dread. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath them. A crack in the earth opened with a deafening roar, swallowing the fog and revealing an immense cavern. Light flickered from deep within the chasm, a haunting glow beckoning. "Follow me," Sarah cried, darting towards it. As they approached, the shadows hissed and recoiled at the light. It seemed to burn them, but Bob hesitated. "What if it's a trap?" he questioned, uncertainty clouding his judgment. "It's our only chance," Sarah urged, her grip tightening around his wrist. Before he could respond, mist coiled around his ankles, tugging him back. He stammered, "Sarah. Help." Panic surged within him as the darkness slithered like a snake, trying to ensnare him. Fighting against the pull, he tugged at her hand. "No. We can't let it keep us." Just then, the glow flickered, pulsating as if it were alive. An image emerged, visions of their past, moments of joy intertwined with the sadness of the shadows creeping closer. It made his chest ache. "Sarah. Look." He pointed at the shimmering light, reeling with wonder. "It's showing us our memories." But as the memories unfolded, so did the shadows. They screamed and writhed, desperate to reclaim what had been lost. "You think your love can save you?" Mike's voice cut through the chaos, mockery dripping from every word. "You'll never escape me." Bob's heart raced even faster. Standing on the edge between light and dark, they had to make a choice. We can't let him win. We dive in together. Together, Sarah echoed, a fierce light in her eyes. With a sudden surge of determination, they dashed toward the glowing chasm, ready to leap into the unknown, not knowing if they would find peace or plunge further into darkness. Would they regain their memories? Or would Mike's darkness consume them completely? As they plunged into the chasm, time froze for an electric moment. The air turned dense, as if squeezing them into a vice. Bob clutched Sarah's hand tighter, their fingers intertwined like a lifeline against the torrent of darkness. A kaleidoscope of memories exploded in his mind: laughter at summer picnics, warm embraces after a long day. Every moment they had shared flooded him with strength. "Hold on!" Sarah yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. The light pulsed brighter, illuminating their path, pushing back the shadows swarming around them. With hearts racing, they hurtled forward into the light, their fears chased away by the warmth engulfing them. Just as it seemed they would vanish into the brilliance, the shadows lashed out, claws of darkness grasping hungrily. In that split second, Bob felt a surge of adrenaline. "We won't let you take us!" he roared, channeling all his anger and fear into a rallying cry. The orb's darkness roared back, hissing like a wild animal cornered. "Together!" Sarah echoed again, her eyes fierce with defiance. Their voices harmonized, a shield of love against the tumult. Light exploded around them, swallowing the darkness whole, illuminating the cavern's depths with radiant power. With a sudden rush, they broke free from the suffocating grasp, plummeting into the shimmering glow and emerging into a world where light danced around them, revealing a vibrant landscape filled with color, a stark contrast to the shadows they had narrowly escaped. "Did we do it?" Sarah whispered, breathless, as they stood amidst blooming fields under a sky lit with 1,000 stars. Bob looked around, sensing the freedom settling into his bones, a euphoric weight lifting from his chest. "I think so," he replied, scanning their surroundings. It felt like they had landed in a dream. Bob's heart swelled with hope, but then he felt a faint elongation of shadow lurking at the edges of their paradise. Reality confronted him. "Not completely," he muttered, worry creeping back in. They might have outrun the worst, but the darkness, he realized, didn't just disappear. "There." Sarah pointed, spotting a familiar shape looming at the horizon. Bob's stomach twisted as dread pooled in his gut. It was the dark doppelganger, the other Mike, watching them from a distance, smirking, his eyes glinting with malice like twin daggers. "You think you're free?" The dark figure taunted, his voice echoing like a ghost. "This place is an illusion. You will never rid yourself of me. You will always carry the shadows within." Bob's resolve hardened. "No," he said, his voice low but resolute. "You may linger, but you won't define us. We have the power of our love, our memories on our side." As they faced him, the aura around Bob and Sarah pulsated brighter, fed by their mutual strength. They stood reunited, a barrier against the encroaching shadows. "You're nothing but a distortion," Sarah added, her voice steady. "You can't touch what we share. You're a figment of our fear." The ground trembled as the dark figure's face twisted in rage. "You think you can deny me? I am a part of you. I will consume your light." But Bob felt a spark ignite in his chest. "No. Our love is unbreakable." Their bond glimmered, illuminating the darkness as their shared memories shimmered in the air, swirling around them with vibrant strength. Laughter, tears, and honesty, the pure essence of their connection, like a shield against the shadow. The dark Mike screeched, recoiling as the light expanded, consuming the gaps in his darkness. The air crackled, trembling against the tension, shadows swirling tighter, threatening to envelop him. But together, Bob and Sarah focused on the light, their love igniting their hope in a desperate surge. "Now!" they shouted in unison, raising their arms as the brilliance exploded, sending a shockwave through the air. The shadows screeched in furious agony, thrashing against the encroaching light as, with one final flicker, the dark figure dissolved into cascading shadows. With a final gasp, the darkness evaporated, leaving nothing but silence and the echo of freedom resounding through the landscape. They stood together, breath steadying, disbelief shimmering in their eyes. "We did it," Bob whispered, wonder coating his words. "We're really free." Sarah's gaze sparkled with relief, and she wrapped her arms around him, holding on tight as they reveled in the warmth of the moment. But as they looked ahead, the horizon's beauty gleamed brightly, glistening with possibilities that felt limitless, shadows finally at bay. Hope thrummed in their veins, weaving dreams anew from the fabric of their love, a bond that would never shatter. As they stepped forward, together, a bright future dawned before them, a world waiting to be written, memories waiting to be made. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm with your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. You need to support us. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions.